Hey everyone, thanks for listening. Today I'm speaking with Joseph Becker. Joseph is an attorney and he's also a children's author, and it's children's books based mainly on science and I guess exploration. And he's just about to come out with his sixth book. Hi Joseph, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so I gotta ask, like, how did you go from being an attorney to writing science-based children's books? I'm assuming I've read your bio, so you've got a daughter, so I'm assuming that had something to do with.
Yeah, having children helped inspire me to write the books. A lot of it was just kind of being an attorney, killing my soul. I'm an extremely creative person. I mean, even within the law, I worked for a record label for a while. I had an entertainment law firm. I'm always trying to be surrounded by art and artists. Um, and I am artistic and creative myself. I love writing. I love art. So this is one of the ways I stay creative, writing my books on the side.
As we're recording this, I just turned 50 today, but anyway, so
Happy birthday.
thank you. But okay, when I remember when I was a kid, I loved reading since I was very young. You know,
Hmm.
Dr. Seuss all the way up. But for me, it was more like the fantasy type stuff. So like the Phantom Tollbooth and
Right.
My Father's Dragon and things like that, right? And the Narnia books I really loved, and The Hobbit was great too growing up. But there wasn't a lot of science stuff for kids. There was science books, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But the closest that I can remember was um, there's a series of biographies for kids, but they touched everything. So I remember they had like Beethoven. There was one on
Hmm.
Confucius. They had scientists, and so those were the closest that kind of came to like science books for kids, right? There was science fiction, but not so much. Did you see like a lack of it? Is that kind of why you went towards a science thing, or was there something particular about?
So two reasons. I mean, the main reason is something that else that I'll get into in a second, but there was a huge gap in children's literature for science and for critical thinking. Even now, I have five books in the Annabelle and Aiden series out now. Besides those five books, I bet there are definitely under 10 books on the big questions in science. There's probably two or three books on evolution. There's probably two or three book, three or four books on the Big Bang. And there's probably many, many dozens of Bible stories and creationist stories out there. So there was a huge gap in children's literature for that kind of stuff, and let alone critical thinking. I mean, I don't think there's really much of anything for kids in terms of myths and whether you want to talk about flat Earth or theology or whatever it is. Just on critical thinking in general, there's really nothing out there. Maybe one or two books. So I really wanted to attack that and talk about the big questions in science and where did we come from, what happens when we die, and things that are magical and amazing, just as incredible as fairy tales and the most fantastical stories we could weave. Uh, you know, they say reality is stranger than fiction, and I thought, why not share that as well? But the main reason why I really did this is because I grew up in a very religious household, and I was taught evolution. They paid lip service to it, but it was kind of dubbed down like, yeah, this is kind of crazy. We have to teach it to you, and they only taught us about the peppered moths in England. They only taught us about these remote examples. They didn't teach us what I had to learn when I was 27 years old or so, about how it explains how every living thing, including humans, look the way they do and act the way we do and think the way we do. And I mean, it explains everything about life. It's incredible. And when I learned it, I was in love. And when you're in love, you want to tell the world. And I saw the huge gap in children's literature. I thought this stuff was amazing. And I think if you walk up to, at least in, the country that I live in America, if you walk up to people on the street, children or adult, I think I wonder if they have a statistic on this, but I would guess that 75, at least 75% of people between ages 10 and 50 don't know basically what evolution is. They don't know what it is. They think it was a one-time event that happened to, thousands of years ago where like 20 monkeys turned into people. I mean, I think they just think it's some like one-time event that happened. And I actually did this. I was in Vegas. I was speaking at the American Humanist Association conference in Vegas 2 years ago now. And I just as a gag, I put on an orange spacesuit and I walked along the Vegas Strip with a microphone and a camera, and I asked people if they knew what evolution was. And not exactly a scientific experiment, but of the 15 or 20 people I questioned, I think one guy kind of got it.
Okay, I mean, I know where you're going with this, and I kind of agree with you. But the Vegas Strip being what the Vegas Strip is, so alcohol might have something to do with some of those answers. But
Yeah,
but no, okay, I
yeah,
agree with you there. And even people who kind of know what it is and
yeah,
have an understanding that okay, we're still going through that process, kind of like I mean, like not I shouldn't say kind of, but they they're thinking okay, we're kind of the end, but we'll fine tune ourselves, not thinking that okay, a million years down the road we wouldn't recognize what we've become, right?
hmm
But yeah, they'll still say something like, okay, we evolved from apes. It's like, no,
hmm
we are an ape. We share a
hmm
common ancestor with, didn't evolve from, right? I mean, it's a very small distinction, but it's important.
hmm
Or, or the worst is when people hear survival of the fittest, they think survival of
hmm
the strongest, survival of the best. It's like, no, the survival of that which fits best, right?
right,
And that could be a spineless jellyfish that basically just floats along the tide, but that fits
right,
best in that environment, so that will survive, right? I mean,
right.
so yeah, it's these little concepts. But like, again, full confession, I didn't read the books,
Yeah,
but okay, I was looking into them and I was going back. The thing I like about
yeah,
them and the way, at least the descriptions, it's not so much. It doesn't describe like any even. I mean, you've talked about like okay, where do we come from and stuff, but it's always and sorry I keep forgetting to mention the names of the books. I'm very bad at this. Annabelle Aiden,
that's fine.
the Annabelle and Aiden books, but it's okay, in the first one it's Annabelle asks, why do we look at this? It's not just okay, how did this happen? Okay, well, this is how we evolved. Here's the process, there it's done. It's more about the thinking behind it. It's not just stating out facts. Like for myself, I was always a very curious kid, and I mean I think I drove my parents nuts compared to my brother and sister. I mean, there wasn't anything I wouldn't question. And but then, so when Cosmos came out, I was just about to turn
hmm
11, or I just turned 11, so the original one. And that's what that thing with Sagan, like that's what really sparked a chord with me. That really sparked my interest in science, and that was he didn't just regurgitate facts, right, and say, this is the speed of gravity on Earth, blah 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 blah. He didn't just do that. He talked about how we thought about things, and he talked more about how to think, not necessarily what to think, right? And to me, like reading the description of your books and looking a little bit into them, it looks kind of like that.
Yeah, I mean, this whole time, really Carl Sagan. Right for the 2 minutes before you mentioned Sagan, Carl Sagan was in my mind. He really makes science into, there's a lot of brain and there's a lot of heart. And I wanted to do that because that's what science is. It tells our story. I feel like a lot of the traditions that were handed down are all tell different stories of our creation, except for the only one that's true and the only one that's the most amazing. I mean, I'm being a little, tongue in cheek
Yeah,
here, but I really wanted to tell that. I'm like, we don't have to, the whole philosophy behind the Annabelle and Aiden book series is really, we don't need to resort to inventing stories because we have the best one and it teaches us that we're all related and we all come from the same stardust and we all descended from the same ancestor, and that race and religion and national and ethnic boundaries that we like to focus on and exaggerate, are often far more arbitrary than we realize. and that's what the science tells us, and that we're all connected. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I try to. Okay, I've kind of made a similar argument with friends who, oh, we gotta. Like, I hate that term. Like, I gotta defeat religion or whatever. And it's like, I don't see why you see it that way, but whatever. Um,
hmm
okay, and I'm a huge proponent of science. I will not bash it in any way.
right,
It's just, and it's not science as a body of fact. It's the methodology. Like, that methodology is the
right,
best thing we've got going, and it's what's taken us this far, right? But science and reason alone. So, okay, we both come from a background in Abrahamic faiths. So if you look at the story of Genesis, um,
hmm
the science wasn't denied them, right? People just say, "Oh, the tree of the fruit of the tree of knowledge," but it was the knowledge of good and evil. The science was, I mean, God was okay. I created this. I did all this for you. That's why you worship me, because I did all this. There's the science is done. That wasn't something you couldn't talk about. It was the good and evil, the storytelling, the morals, the ethics. It was all that stuff that
hmm
was technically denied to them, right? And or denied to us. And so, just using pure reason and science, or like what Sagan did and what you're talking about, and like I said, from what I could see of the your books, it's that story. It's giving that it's giving story to that methodology and saying, okay, this one story will give you this methodology, which was it's divinely created, and here's the good and evil from that. And then this story is not necessarily good and evil, but how to think of things, and it's you know derive your own good and evil from this story. It's not like the other story, which is telling you what's good and evil type of thing. I don't know if I'm making
hmm
sense here.
So I'm trying to understand what you're saying when you're saying science isn't denied in the
Okay, I'm
Bible.
not saying science isn't denied. I'm saying that the knowledge that was denied to Adam and Eve wasn't the knowledge of science. It was the knowledge of good and evil. I mean, it says it right out, like the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The science aspect of it wasn't, okay, let's not call it science, but it's like, it was God saying, I was creation. I created all the animals. I created everything, right? This is all done by me. So that was the science aspect of it, if you want to call it that, right? Like, here's
Right,
the creation, here's everything. I'm the source, I'm the wellspring. Worship me because of that. The
right,
knowledge I'm going to hold back from you is the knowledge of ethics and morals and the humanities and the arts and the storytelling and what's good and what's evil. And like a Dawkins approach, and I respect Dawkins a lot, but I
hmm
like his science books more than I like the God Delusion. You
right,
know, he can be, I think, a little too strident. He's like, always, just all you need is reason, and I'm like, no, I think you need something else. You
right,
need that
right,
story. You need what Sagan did, right? You need something other
right,
than just the pure reason and logic to batter down the facts.
right, right, right. I mean, it said, I think Jonathan Haidt said, we're wired for basically the hardware of our brains are wired for stories, not for facts. I mean, that's how we evolved. We understand stories better. There are studies that are actually done that show overwhelmingly that people remember things if they are told in a story as opposed to those same exact things told in a factual manner. That's how our minds work. And then, Sapiens by Noah Yuval Harari really talks a lot about that, and how stories, especially shared stories, is really what kept our species together, because we were able to cooperate because we all shared the same story, you know? So that's
Okay,
that's where nationalism comes from. We all have the history of America, the history of
yeah,
Canada, the history of Russia. We all have, everyone in a country, just like everyone in a religion, has a shared story that keeps them together. And you could meet a total stranger from the other side of that territory or that group or that tribe, and right away you have a certain code with them and loyalty to them because you share stories with them. So yeah, there's a huge value to that, and that's what we have to do in science as well, tell the story.
yeah. I mean, okay, what you were talking about, I kind of discussed that with someone, like the shared stories. Um,
Okay.
so, yeah, we just sit around the fire, tell each other stories. Then the
Yep.
cave paintings or whatever, right? Then along come books, along come TV, and up until, I guess, the 150 channels or whatever we have now. But when it was basically just network TV, right? You had the water cooler shows. So you'd go to work or school or wherever the next day and talk about whatever stupid thing happened on I Love Lucy all the way down to Seinfeld, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that anymore. We've gotten so niche with everything, and then we're politicizing just about everything. We're losing a lot of common stories. Like I'm just commenting on this just because I worked overseas for about 13 years. In the last 4 years, or from 2014 up until end of last year, I was living up in a remote community in northern Canada. So, it's I come back and it's when you come back to like a big like Montreal or any kind of like let's say civilization for the lack of a better term, and you see the insanity. It's like what's going on, and it's like over the last few years, ever since I came back from overseas, that's one of the things I've noticed. Like we don't have anything to share anymore, really. Like when Game of Thrones was on, you kind of had that, like a big thing, like one of the big Marvel blockbusters or another big blockbuster movie that everyone goes sees. Like you have little things like that we can share for a very short amount of time, but we don't have anything big.
That's funny you say that, because that might be why when we do get that, we make such a big deal out of it. That might be why the Avengers was such a blockbuster hit and everyone is obsessed with watching the Game of Thrones pre-show and the Game of Thrones and Game of Thrones after show and talking about it the next day at work. We're so, maybe in today's society, I'm kind of echoing what you're saying. We're missing that, and that's why we crave that so much, and we eat up Stranger Things and whatever these cult shows, and wear the merchandise and talk about whether we're on team. I never saw what's the vampire show? Team Edward or Team God, whatever.
What were those?
Right. Yeah.
I don't even know where they are. I know what you're talking about, but I know I've never seen them.
Right. So I think what you're saying is we lost that campfire storytelling community. We lost our village, and we crave that. And when a show comes out, we latch onto it and eat it up. Maybe because of that. It's a good point.
No, but I mean, like, it's just, I think, okay, like books for kids. Granted, when I was younger, didn't have all the distractions you have now. But it's that again. I mean, like, more kids start reading these books. Like I remember when the Harry Potter came out, and all the kids were reading that, and they're all talking about it. Whatever. It just, you're bonding over something. And again, you might be bonding with people you would never have any other contact with aside from that, right? I mean, so it's like I don't know if you were specifically looking to do that, or did you like? I mean, I know you like. I totally agree with you that let's teach the kids of science and all that. But I was just wondering if you were looking at like another aspect of it, like to try to. I mean, I don't want to ascribe something to you that you weren't doing, but like I was just wondering if you were even like thinking about something like that, like okay, something for kids to share.
It was. I mean. No, it wasn't really. I didn't really have an interest in just having something for kids to share outside of science. I wanted it to be science. I'm trying to nudge society to grow up a little bit, and I'm kind of trying to allure them with reality as opposed to all of the traditions and myths and fairy tales we all enjoy, which are very important as well and have their place. But I'm trying to say, like, hey, could we tell this story also? Could we learn about what actually happened and celebrate that and change the world together? Because these children are going to have a stage. They're going to be, if they're not senators or congressmen or in government, they're going to have a vote. They're going to be a teacher. They're going to have a classroom. They're going to have a social media account. They're going to decide whether to vaccinate their children or how they feel about GMOs when they're shopping in the supermarket. And they should, it's a good, they should have, they're going to be part of our society and create our world and affect it. And they should be inspired with the magic of critical thinking and understanding reality.
Okay,
that's
what
my goal was.
That's laudable enough. Like don't get me wrong. Like I shouldn't say there shouldn't even be enough at it. Like I was just curious because of like we just talked about like the sharing of the stories and stuff. But yeah, I mean the critical thinking and stuff. Because I'd spoken with I don't know if you've heard of Let Grow.
Let
Yeah,
Grow? I don't think
it
so.
started off as a blog called Free Range Kids, and now it's a
Mm-hmm.
nonprofit. It's letgrow.org, and
Mm-hmm.
basically they do projects for little kids, and I think they have stuff from uh, kindergarten all the way up until high school. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
middle school, so, not so much high school, but it's and it's age appropriate projects, so it's okay for toddlers and stuff, or like kindergarten kids, grade one or something. Nothing too serious, but make toast on the weekend for breakfast. So you're helping make breakfast, right? And
Mm-hmm.
as kids get a little bit older, let's say about 10 years old, they go down to the corner store and buy like a quart of milk or something. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then the whole school gives that project out for a week. They've got these things going on, so everyone in the community knows that this is going on. So when they see kids, a couple of kids walking by themselves or a kid going to the store, like no one's kind of freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
And then also when I spoke to like about the clear the lists, like the thing like with all the teachers like they're looking to, which I think is nuts. Like I've seen teachers with pencil sharpeners like because they don't have a pencil sharpener in a classroom, which is nuts. But I mean like
Yeah.
I don't have kids. I have a niece and a nephew. But
Mm-hmm.
for example, and my only dog in this fight is I'm going to get old, and these kids are going to be or when they grow up, they're going to be making the policy that my pension comes from.
Right.
They're going to be the doctors, like you said, the engineers, the lawyers, whatever. They're going to be all of it. I want them to be the best educated possible, so that I got like at least they'll be able to put in policies. I can I won't be screwing myself over. Like
Right.
I want an educated population.
Yeah, exactly. And just to create a better world, you know?
If we stress critical thinking with the kids, and if we stress critical thinking early on,
Mm-hmm.
that better world will kind of it's you want to talk about manifest destiny or whatever, but I mean it will be. It's what's going to come about, right? I mean, if you teach people how
Sure.
to think properly. You've got a sixth book coming out soon.
Yes. So the sixth book, it's called This World Was Made for Me. And for our listeners, I think it should be on Kickstarter now. So if you go to our website, annabelleandaiden.com, the button will come up linking to the Kickstarter campaign where people could pre-order the book. The book is called This World Was Made for Me, and it's kind of a satirical title. It's a cautionary tale. It pokes a little bit of fun at the design argument, but it really teaches the lesson. You know, a lot of people in this world say, we could take as many of the Earth's resources as we want. Cows were made for us, for the purpose for us to eat as much as we want. We could cut down all the trees and et cetera, et cetera. And the book is just a cautionary tale trying to remind us that the world does not belong to us, but we belong to the world. We belong to the earth, and we have to take care of it. The end of the book says, if we are good to it, then it will be good to us. But the book, in order to reach this goal and teach this lesson, the book tells the true story of Earth's evolution through the five mass extinctions. So, a lot of people think we have eyes so that we could see. We were given fingers so that we could hold things. But in reality, every part of our body was a random genetic mutation that just happened to happen, but then it was naturally selected. So this basically tells the story of life's evolution. And every time a mass extinction happens, in the book, you see 99% of all earthly life pretty much die, go extinct. And then you see like one random survivor that just so happened to survive because of a random fin that the animal had, or a little leg that he had, or a little, start of an eyeball that he had. And then after all the other animals pass away, he looks around and the earth seems perfect for him because he has that mutation that helped him survive. And he, comically boasts, oh, this world was made for me, until he has babies a lot like him, and then some other volcano explodes, or some erupts, or something else happen, and then all again, like, they all die except for some other random animal who happens to have a bigger toe than all of the others that are all dead. And he looks around and says, this world was made for me. And it keeps going like that through every extinction cycle until it gets to humans. And then humans are cutting down all the trees, and, et cetera, overfishing the oceans, et cetera. And it touches upon climate change a little. And human beings look around and they think, and they say what a lot of people say today: this world it's perfect for me. It's perfect for my body. It fits my body perfectly. It must have been made for me, made for me. And then tardigrade Tom, one of the characters, is like, I think it's getting warmer, it's starting to get warmer. And it basically closes with the lesson, like, this world was not made for us. It actually shaped our bodies. It actually made, it wasn't made for us. It actually made us. And we belong to it, and we have to be careful with it, and respect it, and love it, and treat it well.
Yeah, we were made for it, not the other way around.
Exactly. Exactly.
But also, I mean, okay, I've had I don't know if you want to call it the luck or the misfortune, however you want to put it, but I've been in, like, extreme cold, and I've been in a desert, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, we haven't been made for each other. Like there's whole swaths of this planet that weren't made for us. Like, we weren't meant to live on the North Pole. We weren't meant to live in the Sahara. We weren't meant. There are places we aren't meant to live. There are some people up in the far north, but they only go, they only go a certain distance. So, like, even this planet wasn't meant for life as we know it.
Right. 2/3 of it is salt water.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that's the thing with evolution also. That's exactly right. Evolution doesn't make you the best it could. You don't have to be the strongest. You just have to be good enough to survive, in order for a mutation to be naturally selected for. All it has to do is meet a minimum threshold to allow you to produce offspring and pass on that gene, right? Yeah. So that's exactly right. Yeah. You could point out a lot of stuff about our bodies and how they're shoddily designed in many ways, like our appendix or our, testicles hanging out, or, there's many things about our body that is, a shoddy design. So this book kind of shows that. It shows, like, when we look at our bodies and we look at the planet, we're not thinking about all the discarded designs that weren't good enough, which was 99.9% of them. 99.9% of species have gone extinct, So, it touches on that as well. And it's just trying to infuse some humility into people and show them that, basically what you were saying, our place here is fragile, and we have to respect it and appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I don't think enough people think about that. And, okay, the climate change thing, and I don't want to get into a whole huge climate change debate. Because, okay, there is no real debate here, right? The climate is changing. Whether you want to argue whatever you want to argue about it, let's just agree that it's changing, and let's try to see what we can do to fix it, right? But okay, like, now we've got an election going on in Canada right now, and not one single one of our parties is saying anything that's making any sense. Now, the ones that want to go the full Greta route, and I have nothing against her. I think it's fantastic that a young person like that is that passionate. I'm just kind of disappointed about some of the information that's coming out from her or whoever's feeding her that information. But like I said, so the parties that want to go that route, not one of them is talking about carbon capture. Not one of them is talking about nuclear.
Nuclear.
Yep. I'm sorry. Okay, Canada produces 1.66% of the world's carbon. It's if you look at it like, I think it's in the top 10, or it is number 10 or something like that. So granted, okay, that means it's a big polluter or whatever. But if people don't start looking at something like carbon capture, you've got India that's saying that by 2050, all their population is going to have electric power, and a lot of that's going to be coal burning, and it's going to be better than people burning the cow dung and the wood and whatever to heat them, heat source and cook and whatever. That's it's going to be better than that. But if we don't work towards a carbon capture for that, no matter what Canada does or what any of the Scandinavian countries do, like I'm not counting the U.S. unfortunately right now unless something changes.
Mm-hmm.
But even the U.S., it's not like they're number 3. They're still, but they're behind the other two. It's still like, until these kind of things where these developing countries, where they need the chance to have some breathing room to grow a little bit, to be able to come to the point where, okay, we can look at other options. But let's look at ways to clean that stuff up. Like, it's not like that kind of stuff I don't think is being taught. It's just, here are the facts on climate change. And it's like, okay, well, is there any kind of room for debate on solutions? Not the debate about, okay, whether it's happening or not. Like, let's just, it's happening. There's something going on. It needs to be taken care of. But can we just have a slight debate on solutions? Because, it's either this or nothing. We're all going to die in 10 years. It doesn't seem like a good message to me.
Right. I think different people need different messages to act. I think some people need, for example, I have friends that, kind of, you were talking about Richard Dawkins before, and I had friends that were completely turned off by him. And they needed more of a, I know I'm veering away from climate change, but I'm just talking about communication, because that's really what we're talking about. Some people are turned off by the tough love kind of thing, and some people are turned on by alarmist or more extreme, no nonsense kind of communication. So, I think, the more voices we have out there, the better, that are communicating in different ways, as long as they are all giving the same message of either this is happening or this is happening and let's do something about it. I don't know. Are you saying you feel like a lot of discussion about solutions is being shut down?
Okay, I don't hear a lot of things from governments about nuclear, right? I hear
Right.
rumblings from Bill Gates and Elon
Right.
Musk, and then you hear like Neil deGrasse Tyson and
Right.
Lawrence Krauss, but I don't hear it from states. Aside from okay, let's again. I don't want to pick on her, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm picking on her, but Greta's from Sweden. Sweden is something like 70% nuclear energy.
Yeah,
Yet,
she should. Yeah.
but in her policy, she says no nuclear, no carbon capture, and no mega hydroelectric.
So she's against nuclear? She actually said that?
The policy thing that they put out, they wanted people to sign the petition, has that included in it.
Yeah, that's horrible. I agree with you. I didn't know that.
So,
I thought she just didn't mention it. I didn't read her policy. So,
well, there was a petition that went out and it had listed all their things, and I mean, and they're suing 5 countries. They want to go to the UN, her and 15 other teenagers, and again, it's symbolic. Great, let these kids are passionate. Let's fuel that passion, right?
Yeah.
But the countries they're suing, like China's not on that list. India's not on that list. I don't think it is. I have to go back and check. It's been it's been like a month since I looked at it. But I mean, France is on that list, but Canada isn't. France is only about 8% of France's production is from fossil fuels. The rest is renewable and nuclear. So I'm like, okay, they're carbon free basically. They produce half the carbon of Canada, but Canada's not on that list that you're suing.
Right.
It's like I said, it's. Sorry, we're going way off your books here, but
no, it's fine. I agree with everything you're saying. I just think it's important to not be on Team Greta or hate Greta. And you're not doing that. I know you're not doing that, because you said many times you're not. You don't want to. What she's doing is great in its own way. I'm agreeing with you. I don't like when people are. I'm all for her. I'm all against her. I think it's okay for us to say, and I think you agree with me. This is what you're saying is like, what she's doing is great, but we disagree with her on some details and on some solutions, and that's great. We should speak up and make that known and say, Greta is great, but she's making a mistake here, and tell her that and tell people that. I mean, that's fine.
Or give her the chance to have, let her listen to, okay, obviously don't listen to me. I work in IT, so this is not my field of expertise, but, okay, it's not even Bill Gates' expertise, but he's investing money in it, so he's obviously looked into it a little bit.
Right.
He's doing stuff for the environment, or
Right.
Tesla's working on, Elon Musk with Tesla and all that other stuff.
Right.
Sit down and speak with him. He's into green energy. He's into stuff like that.
Yeah. She should.
And if he can explain to her why nuclear is a good option, she's a perfect example of this. She's passionate. She's looking,
Hmm.
but is she being fed facts or is she being taught how to think? It's again, it's the wrong thing here.
Right. 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 Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's my only thing on like that. Okay, that's my biggest. Okay, my biggest dog in any fight is free speech, and it comes down to things
Right.
like this. People should be able to have all the facts available to them, and should be able to have the capacity to parse through that information to make good judgments, right?
Right.
And
Right.
we should be able to sit here and have a reasonable discussion on these things, right? That's
Yeah. I agree. Um, to me, the part, everything you're saying is true, and it's important. But I think, at least in my country, where science denialism is so widespread, to me, Greta is a hero in that she's bringing awareness to something. And everything you said, I agree with. But to me, that those are kind of parsing out details. Like if I go to the doctor and the doctor tells me I'm horribly overweight and I'm because I'm 50 and I'm 60, I'm not going to live much longer because of it. And let's say the doctor is Greta and she says, you need to, you need to eat better. And then, what you're saying is kind of someone saying, well, what about these blood thinners? She didn't bring up these blood thinners. You're not going to get healthier without these blood thinners also. It's like, okay, fine. But if, let's say I'm made of millions of people that are denying that I have a health problem in the first place, and eating better will make me better, just like I'm sure you agree renewables will help. I'm sure you're not against renewable energy, right?
not at
You're not
all.
against that.
Not at all.
So to me, it's a little bit like, but she didn't bring up the blood thinners. It's like,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I know that's not the best analogy because nuclear, I believe and I think you agree that nuclear energy is probably necessary to solve the problem, to really, really help the problem we're facing. So it is really important, and I agree with everything you're saying. But I'm also happy for her to even make the issue known to so many people that don't even believe that the issue even exists.
Okay. Okay. That's I'm 100% okay. Let her speak, and if people who are disagreeing with her, right? People are like, at least if some of the people who disagree with her go and look at it and then
Yeah.
come to the realization, okay, maybe she's got a point here. And again, the reason I bring up the nuclear stuff is because this is a really important issue. And again, yes, let's get to the renewable. Let's get to where we can get to a point where 95% renewable, and the little that we are doing that's not renewable is coming from sources that are pretty much carbon neutral, right?
Hmm.
Let's get to that point. But to get to that point, we can't do it without nuclear, and we can't do it without some sort of carbon capture. If we don't have those two things, and I mean the hydroelectric, I get where you're saying, like I get where she's saying, like I understand Canada's all hydro, and I mean the amount of flooding that we've done up here, especially in Quebec, like the amount of land that was flooded, that's a one time, and I'm not trying to like lessen it, but like that happens in a one time deal, and I know there's other problems later
Right.
on, but it is, once it's done, it is a fairly clean energy. And so I'm
Hmm.
just saying, like, let's these are like, okay, yeah, I know you said it was not like the perfect analogy or whatever, like, but the blood thinner thing is, it's like saying, okay, well, you have to eat healthier, but half your diet can be donuts, or
Uh,
to me it seems like that it's almost that level of a contradiction, because
really? What would the donuts be in the
well,
analogy?
okay, like I said, without nuclear and without the carbon capture right now, you're not going
Yeah.
to meet any goals by 2050. And if you say we have to meet some goals by 2050 to
Right.
reduce the carbon, we're not going to get there. So
Okay.
If you want to cut down on your food intake overall, but half the food that you're taking in now is donuts or, you know, Snickers or whatever, you're worse off than if you're eating slightly more but healthier food. And it's that
Right.
like it's. I'm not like, again. I'm not. I don't want to make it sound like I'm attacking her because I'm not. And
Right.
I just think I wish she had some better information, and I wish that the reaction to her was more reasoned. You know,
Right.
and again, she's 16 years old. We shouldn't be having this kind of discussion about
Right.
a 16-year-old. Like I feel bad for her about it because she shouldn't be our savior. She's not Joan of Arc, for Christ's sakes. You know, like like
Right.
she can be a catalyst and she can be a figurehead or something.
Right.
But reason heads should prevail, and there should be better people, more informed people bringing
Yeah.
solutions to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Greta hasn't been the first
Yeah.
climate activist, and she won't be the last. And she'll be one of many voices, and different voices have different jobs. I don't think her main platform is anti-nuclear. I don't think she's on an anti-nuclear campaign. I think she's on a pro-awareness of climate change campaign. And nuclear, she probably, it sounds like you know more than I did because you read her platform and I didn't. But it seems like she's temporarily thinks that the dangers the cons outweigh the pros. And maybe I'm naive, but I feel like if she just spoke with someone for 20, 30 minutes and they showed her some research, she would, honestly consider it. So I don't know. I don't.
Yeah. Okay. Again, she's young. She's there's.
Yeah.
It's not like hopefully her mind isn't set in stone, and
Yeah.
facts will prevail out. And again, but okay. Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but there's a lot of like important topics, and this is not the only one. There's so many important topics
Yeah.
that where, okay, immigration. We have some issue with that up here because last year, or was it earlier this summer, it was Trudeau said, okay, if you want to, we're going to open up our borders, and we had something like 30,000 people come in one summer from the United States because Trump was apparently going to deport them all or something. Now, my family, I'm an immigrant. My family immigrated here, but yes, there's a way to do it. There's a process. I believe in that process. Now, okay, you want to let people in. It's laudable. You want to help people, but what was done was come in. Okay, now the federal government's going to dump it on the provinces. The province have to take care of it and just walk away. And the federal government looks good, and the provinces are like, well, what are we going to do? We have all these people that, in a couple of month period that we didn't expect. And it's the same thing that's going on your southern border. And it seemed to me at one point there was more conversation going on about whether or not they should be called concentration camps than there was about let's get beds to kids who need them. It's just like everything we're talking about is getting derailed on like the minutia of these points, and maybe my nuclear thing is a minutia. I don't know, but especially with someone like her, because she was so, she was such a focal point. There was, the arguments on both sides were just silly, and it's like, okay, again, this gets back to like thinking critically and teaching kids and teaching people how to think properly, because then maybe we'll get some more reasoned arguments. And I don't know how you think about this. The problem with colleges and stuff, and I see a lot, because the elections are going on. Well, your debates going on right now, the Democratic ones, anyways. When they're talking about education and stuff, there's like a kind of a gloss over the primary and the secondary, and they're kind of focusing everything on post-secondary. It's like, okay, well, instead of trying to do that, wouldn't it be better to focus on the primary and the secondary so that by the time that people get to post-secondary, you don't need to massage the SAT scores, you don't need to give people extra points, you don't need to do this, you don't need to do that. Oh, well, people from this zip code, get an extra bonus because they're in a disenfranchised neighborhood or something. Like, I mean, to me, like it's again, like teach the kids how to think as they grow up. That's a skill that's always going to be there with them, and it's going to help them along in life. So if you want better students in post-secondary, or if you want a better, diversity or whatever. You want just the best people getting in there possible, and you want to give everyone that chance to be that best person. To me, it
Mm-hmm.
seems like let's work on it way before you get to college, because if you get to the college level, it's way too late.
Yep. Yeah. And even start when they're honestly when they're toddlers and asking about the tooth fairy and Santa Claus
Yeah.
and prod them and say, well, why do you think that? And how do you know that's true? And what if this is true? And did you know some people believe this, but some people believe that? And, what do you think? Why do you think that? You know? So it's important from a young age. Absolutely.
So, okay, I don't want to keep you too long. You've been kind of generous with your time. I know you've got the new book coming up.
Yep.
But do you have anything else going on that you want to talk about, or if there's anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't touch on, please feel free.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. It's been great being here. We came out with our first book around 3.5 years ago called The Story of Life on Evolution. And about a month later, you could actually still find it online. The book was banned and condemned by the Christian News World Network. It's kind of a crazy article. If you put into Google, if you put in Annabelle Aiden aggressive atheists, you'll find this article saying the book was written by a group of aggressive atheists who are targeting children with Darwinist propaganda. It's a great article. And I was actually kind of scared when I saw that, because I wasn't used to that kind of media, negative media attention, let alone any attention. And I sold, within the next hour, I sold 100 books on Amazon. It just kind of, it brought a lot of awareness. So my response was to write a second book on critical thinking, and I mailed it to the Christian News World Network and said, you guys will love this one, kind of like hoping they would ban that too. But they're not idiots, so they didn't ban it.
Okay, well, okay,
they knew what I was doing.
Okay, the idiot thing, that might be debatable. Yeah, I was gonna.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
We got talking, and I completely forgot about that, because I was going to ask you about that, because that article was hilarious. I mean,
oh, you saw it.
Yeah,
good.
okay.
Yeah, I sent it to you. Okay, good.
Okay, and that's one thing about the critical thinking and all that. It's just it makes you brave in a way. Like, the whole ban this book, don't read it, ban that, don't listen to this. There's a level of cowardice to it, because you're afraid what it might. Hitchens put it best, right? It's like faith is helping to crush free inquiry and the emancipating consequences that it might bring. And that's what they're afraid of, like the emancipating consequences of reasoning and critical thinking. And and it's just, like I said, but the article made me laugh, because it is kind of funny, like, aggressive atheists are targeting our children. And it's just like, and what was it? I mean, this is kind of a little bit more horrific, but it was in Poland earlier this summer, and I believe there was also a school board in Tennessee. In Poland, they were burning the Harry Potter books because it taught kids witchcraft. It was some Orthodox Catholic group, and then there was in Tennessee, it was a Catholic school or Catholic school board. Same thing, it banned the Harry Potter books because the Latin was teaching kids spells and they're going to know magic. So, I mean, it's like, okay, you're scared, you're cowards.
Right. I mean, most of the people in the comments section that were making fun of the article were Christians as well. So I do want to say that publicly on this podcast, and I've seen a lot of debates between Hitchens and other, other critical thinkers or skeptics or atheists, whoever. It doesn't matter what it's about. But I've seen debates at a lot of Christian universities, and I really applaud the Christian universities for even having the debates in the first place. And one of the Christians, or one of the pastors, said before the debate that beliefs that could only exist by being protected from scrutiny are beliefs not worth having. And I really love that quote. So, I mean, so my first book was banned by evangelical fundamentalist Christians, but a lot of Christians are open to those discussions. So, I don't want to generalize like that, but that really made me realize how important it was to start this book series, the Annabelle and Aiden children's book series. And since then, we came out with a book on the Big Bang, and we came out with a book. Our fourth book was called "What Happens When We Die," and that's probably our bestseller, actually. And then, we came out with a book about Homo sapiens and human ancestry, and now we're at number five. This world was made for me.
Okay, just because the when you mentioned the one about the what happens when we die, it was like the Humans of New York series there on Facebook.
Yes.
There was one about 2 months ago. It was a little girl who was about 8 years old, and she's like, I really get upset with adults because they don't want to talk about serious things. She's like, I love I love reading about the Donner Party. I've read everything I can find about it, and I want to know about what made them go cannibal. And I want to talk about. And she's saying like, but no one wants to talk to me because I'm a little kid.
Wow.
And it's just, but that's just it. Like I think sometimes we treat kids like, okay, I'm not saying that that they have the capacity to deal with everything,
Yeah.
but I think they could deal with a little bit more than we give them credit for.
Absolutely. And I think we come with our own baggage,
Yeah.
and we kind of project that onto them, and they don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, in a way, they're smarter than us. In a way, they're more naive, but in a way that makes them smarter because they don't have that baggage and they could just like look at it frankly. Um, you know,
Yeah.
so
Well, I mean, if you want to people know where they can find the books, and I'll put all the links and everything down there, and I'll put the link to that article so if people want to read, they can get a good laugh.
perfect. Perfect. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, the our website is annabelleandaiden.com. Annabelle, the name spelled the most
Yeah.
common way, Annabelle, and Aiden, Aiden. So that's annabelleandaiden.com. And you could also, when you go to our website, a window will pop up that'll take you to our Kickstarter. So you could get a chance to pre-order the upcoming new book, This World Was Made for Me. And you could actually even get your child's face, a picture of your child's face or your face inside of the book, which is something that people love to do. That they get that when they pre-order the book. So,
All right, cool. Well, thank you very much.
yeah.
And
Thank you, Obaid.
no, it was a pleasure. And thank you everyone for listening.